According to the Statistic Brain Research Institute, the total number of crimes committed by juveniles in 2014 was 61,227. This number of crimes is more than half of the number of crimes committed in 1995. We all either have younger siblings, cousins, or someone we care about that is in the age of 6 or 17, which is the gray area of whether they be tried as an adult or juvenile. Despite all the different areas that are covered in juvenile courts, I am going to talk about 3 different areas. The 3 points I will discuss in this speech are the histories of juvenile courts, the similarities and differences between adult and juvenile courts, and a 15-year-old boy's court case. I'm now going to inform you briefly on the history of juvenile courts. Before the 20th century, juvenile courts were unheard of and children were considered young adults. Children as young as 7 were being tried as an adult and imprisoned with them as well. Until 1824, the House of Refuge was opened in New York, becoming the first step to separate juveniles and adults. Since the changes over time, the age limits, the youngest recorded boy's name is Nathaniel Adams. He was 11, and in 1997, he was tried and committed as an adult. In 1899, the first juvenile court was established in Cook County, Illinois. Within a 30-year time span, almost all the states had established a juvenile court. In June 2012, the Supreme Court ruled that mandatory life sentences without parole for juveniles is cruel and unusual punishment. The Supreme Court asked the states to individualize sentencing decisions and focus more on rehabilitation. The states preferred to stay on the tough on crime look and only reduce the sentencing by a few years. Now that you have a brief history on juvenile courts, I will now talk about the differences and similarities between adult and juvenile courts. Adult and juvenile courts have many different differences, but also have some few things in common. The main difference between juvenile courts and adult courts is the idea behind punishment. In juvenile courts, the young are mostly tried as juveniles unless they commit a serious crime like murder. Juvenile courts want to focus on rehabilitation to the young to prevent them from ending back up in jail, rather than the adult courts where they punish you for the crimes that you commit. The similarities of the courts are more based on the rights that they share. The rights that they share are the right to an attorney, privilege against self-incrimination, proof beyond reasonable doubt, and the right to notice any changes that are made in their case. Now that you have a brief background on the history and differences between adult and juvenile courts, I will talk about a 15-year-old boy's court case. Juvenile Killers and Life Terms, A Case on Point, was written by Ethan Broner in the October issue in the New York Times Magazine in 2012. On November 6, 1993, Maurice Bailey met his 15-year-old pregnant girlfriend at a playground. He stabbed her repeatedly in the neck and upper body because she wanted to keep their child. He left her body at the site and it was later discovered by young children. The police arrested him at his home, and he said to them, "I figured you'd come." Bailey was tried as an adult, committed, and sentenced to life in prison without parole. According to author Ethan Broner, starting in June 2012, the Supreme Court has banned mandatory life sentences without parole for those under the age of 18 convicted of murder. Broner says it is unclear whether this affects those already committed and serving time, but it does give Bailey and other people like him a slight hope at someday seeing the outside world again. Bailey released this statement in his interview with Broner. "Years ago I'd have said, just let us out. But if the wrong juvenile lifter is let out and he goes off and kills again, it could ruin it for the rest of us. I know I would never commit such a crime again." Through this speech, you have heard a brief history of juvenile courts, the difference between adult and juveniles, and an example of a court case trying a juvenile. The establishment of juvenile courts helps separate children who commit petty crimes from adults who commit serious crimes. Without the separation of these two age groups, our young would be watching and learning the ways of big-time crime committers. Imagine if one of the young people in your lives committed a crime. Would you want the judge to help rehabilitate them, or just send them straight to jail?